Roman Reigns reacts as Jon Moxley visits Seth Rollins after WWE injury. Hold on, are you telling me that Jon Moxley, who left WWE specifically to get away from the corporate politics and backstage drama, who's been building AEW as WWE's direct competition, who hasn't spoken to Seth Rollins in years according to reports, just showed up at a hospital to visit Seth after his injury, and Roman Reigns found out about it and is now furious? What kind of alternate universe are we living in right now? This isn't just wrestling news, this is a nuclear bomb dropped on the entire industry. The Shield brothers Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, haven't been in the same conversation for years, and now we're getting reports of behind-the-scenes interactions that could reshape the entire wrestling landscape. And Roman's reaction? Apparently he's livid that Moxley visited Seth without reaching out to him first. The tribal chief is feeling disrespected, and when Roman feels disrespected, people pay. Drop in the comments right now, is Roman Reigns justified in being angry about this, or is he being a jealous control freak who can't handle his former Shield brothers reconnecting without him? Because this situation is messy and I need to know where you all stand. Let me be crystal clear about something before we dive deep. This story is developing and involves multiple promotions, personal relationships that span over a decade, and egos the size of continents. So what I'm about to break down is based on available reports, insider information, and connecting dots that the wrestling world is buzzing about. And if even half of this is true, we're looking at the most significant backstage wrestling story of the decade. Question for the longtime Shield fans: did you ever think we'd see the day when Moxley and Seth reconnected while Roman felt left out? How the tables have turned. Let's start with what we know. Seth Rollins suffered a legitimate injury during his recent storyline with The Vision on Monday Night Raw. The severity is unclear, reports range from minor to significant, but it was serious enough that Seth needed medical attention and has been off WWE television. That's fact. Everything else? That's where it gets interesting and controversial. According to multiple sources, and when I say sources, I mean wrestling journalists with proven track records, not random Twitter accounts, Jon Moxley was spotted at the same medical facility where Seth was being treated. Now, this could be coincidence. Maybe Moxley had his own appointment. Maybe he was visiting someone else. But the timing, combined with reports from people who were there, suggests that Moxley specifically came to see Seth Rollins. Let that sink in. Jon Moxley, the man who lambasted WWE on his way out, who's been AEW's top star, who's represented everything anti-WWE for years, allegedly visited Seth Rollins, Mr. WWE, the company guy, the man who stayed loyal while Moxley left during a vulnerable moment after an injury. The wrestling world exploded when this news broke. Social media went insane with theories, speculation, and hot takes. Is this a personal visit between old friends? Is this AEW recruiting Seth? Is this the beginning of a Shield reunion that crosses promotional lines? Every possibility is on the table. Here's a question: if you were Seth Rollins, would you want Jon Moxley visiting you, or would that complicate your life too much given the WWE AEW politics? Be honest. Now let's talk about Roman's reaction, because this is where the story gets absolutely fascinating from a character and personal perspective. Roman Reigns, whether in character as the tribal chief or as Joe Anoa'i the person, apparently found out about Moxley's visit through the grapevine, not from Seth or Moxley directly. And according to people close to the situation, Roman is furious. Think about this from Roman's perspective: he's been the guy in WWE for years. He's main event countless WrestleManias. He's been the tribal chief, the head of the table, the undisputed alpha of the company. He and Seth have had their differences over the years, but they're family in multiple ways: Shield brothers, locker room veterans, WWE lifers. And now Seth gets injured and the person who shows up isn't Roman, who was reportedly on a different schedule, but Jon Moxley, the guy who left, the guy who abandoned them. From Roman's viewpoint, this is probably the ultimate betrayal of loyalty. He stayed with WWE through everything. He became the franchise. And now Seth is reconnecting with the guy who walked away? How is Roman supposed to feel about that? But here's the flip side, and this is where opinions divide sharply: why should Roman get to dictate who Seth talks to or who visits him during a medical crisis? Moxley and Seth were best friends during their Shield days. They had a bond that went beyond wrestling. Just because Moxley left WWE doesn't mean that friendship has to die. Controversial question: does Roman Reigns have any right to be upset about this, or should he be mature enough to understand that Seth and Moxley's friendship exists independent of wrestling politics? Sound off below. The timing of this is also crucial. Seth is injured, potentially vulnerable, possibly questioning his future in WWE given the physical toll wrestling takes. The Vision storyline has him as a target. His body is breaking down. And at this moment, Jon Moxley, who famously left WWE citing creative frustration and physical/mental health concerns, shows up? You don't think there's a conversation happening there? You don't think Moxley might be sharing his experience of leaving WWE, finding creative freedom in AEW, and rediscovering his love for wrestling? Even if it's just a friend checking on a friend, the optics are massive. WWE has to be terrified of this situation. Seth Rollins is one of their most valuable assets, a proven draw, a company loyalist who's given everything to WWE. The last thing they want is Jon Moxley and Seth's ear talking about how much better life is outside WWE. That's nightmare fuel for Triple H and Nick Khan. And Roman? Roman probably sees this as Moxley trying to poach Seth, trying to convince him to leave WWE just like Moxley did. Whether that's actually happening or not is irrelevant, the perception is what matters, and Roman's perception is that he's being disrespected and his Shield brother is being targeted. Let me ask, if Seth Rollins did leave WWE for AEW, would you support his decision or see it as betrayal? And would it be the biggest shock in wrestling history? The Shield dynamics have always been complicated. When they first debuted, they were equals three hungry young wrestlers who dominated WWE together. But over time, the hierarchy shifted. Roman became the guy, the chosen one, the face of WWE. Seth became the workhorse, the reliable main eventer, the guy who could work with anyone. And Dean/Moxley became increasingly frustrated with his creative direction until he eventually left. Those different paths created resentment, whether acknowledged publicly or not. Roman got opportunities that Seth and Dean didn't. Seth stayed loyal when Dean left. Dean found success and happiness outside WWE that validated his decision to leave. All of those factors created complex relationships that aren't easily resolved. So when Moxley visits Seth, not Roman, Seth specifically, it reopens all of those old wounds. It highlights the fact that maybe Seth and Moxley's friendship was deeper than the Shield Brotherhood as a whole. It suggests that Roman might have been the odd man out in terms of personal connections, even if he was the leader in terms of wrestling hierarchy. That's got to sting for Roman. The tribal chief, the head of the table, potentially being the third wheel in the Shield's personal relationships? That's a blow to the ego that no amount of championship reigns can heal. Question for the psychologists in the audience: is Roman's anger rooted in legitimate betrayal, or is it insecurity about not being as personally close to Seth as Moxley apparently is? Reports suggest that Roman tried to reach out to Seth after hearing about Moxley's visit, but Seth's response was apparently lukewarm, not hostile, but not welcoming either. As if Seth is processing a lot right now and doesn't need Roman's tribal chief energy complicating things? If that's true, and again, we're dealing with reports and sources here, then Roman has even more reason to feel slighted. He's trying to be there for his Shield brother, and Seth is keeping him at arm's length while apparently welcoming Moxley with open arms? From Roman's perspective, that's a direct insult to everything they've built together in WWE. But from Seth's perspective? Maybe Roman represents WWE, represents the machine, represents the grind that's currently destroying his body. Maybe in this moment, Seth needs someone who understands the toll it takes, who made the difficult decision to prioritize health and happiness over loyalty to a corporation. Maybe Seth needs Moxley's perspective more than Roman's right now. The wrestling media is having a field day with this story. Every podcast, every news site, every YouTuber is speculating about what this means. Is Seth leaving WWE? Is this a Shield reunion? Is this AEW trying to poach another WWE star? Is this just friends being friends and everyone is reading too much into it? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but the speculation is driving engagement through the roof. WWE can't be happy about the attention, AEW is probably loving it, and the three Shield members are at the center of the biggest wrestling story that doesn't involve actual wrestling. Here's a wild hypothetical: if the Shield reunited in AEW, would it be the greatest coup in wrestling history, or would it feel like WWE castoffs rather than the historic faction we remember? Let's talk about what this means for each person individually. For Seth, this is a crossroads moment. Does he finish his career in WWE as a loyal soldier, or does he explore what else is out there? The Moxley visit might not be about recruitment, it might just be about reminding Seth that options exist, that loyalty to a company shouldn't come at the cost of personal well-being. For Moxley, this visit shows that despite leaving WWE, despite building a new career in AEW, his Shield brotherhood meant something real. He's not visiting as a recruiter or a competitor, he's visiting as a friend who knows what it's like to be beaten down by the WWE machine and wants to make sure Seth is okay. For Roman, this is about control and respect. The tribal chief doesn't like surprises, doesn't like being out of the loop, and definitely doesn't like the idea that his Shield brothers might have a connection that excludes him. His anger isn't just personal, it's about maintaining his position as the leader, the alpha, the head of the table. The potential consequences of this situation are massive. 1. If Seth stays in WWE, his relationship with Roman might be permanently damaged. 2. If Seth leaves for AEW, it would be the biggest free agent signing since CM Punk. 3. If this leads to a Shield reunion, in any promotion, the wrestling world would explode. 4. If WWE feels threatened, they might offer Seth everything to keep him from talking to Moxley again. What's the best outcome from this situation for Seth personally, regardless of which company benefits? That's what really matters. WWE's response to this will be fascinating. Do they try to keep Seth and Moxley apart? Do they offer Seth a massive new contract? Do they speed up his return to television to prevent more behind-the-scenes contact? Or do they trust that Seth's loyalty is unshakable? Roman's next move is equally important. Does he confront Seth directly? Does he try to reach out to Moxley? Does he use his influence backstage to ensure this doesn't happen again? Or does he let it go and risk looking weak? The wrestling community is divided on this. Shield purists want to see the brothers reconnect regardless of promotion. WWE loyalists think Moxley is being inappropriate and disrespectful. AEW fans see this as proof that their company represents freedom and friendship. Cynics think this is all being worked for attention and future storylines. Every perspective has merit, which is why this story is so compelling. Question: if this leads to a WWE vs AEW interpromotional Shield storyline, would you want to see it, or would it feel too insider baseball for mainstream audiences? The irony of this situation is thick. Roman Reigns, who once betrayed the Shield and turned heel, who became the corporate champion, who represents everything WWE wants their top star to be, he's the one upset about loyalty and brotherhood. Meanwhile, Moxley, who betrayed WWE by leaving, is showing loyalty to his friend in a moment of need. Which version of loyalty is more valid? Loyalty to a company/institution, or loyalty to personal relationships regardless of business politics? That's a question that extends beyond wrestling into life itself. Seth is caught in the middle of this philosophical debate, and his choice, whatever it ends up being, will define how we view loyalty, friendship, and career decisions in professional wrestling moving forward. The backstage reaction in WWE is reportedly tense. Some wrestlers apparently support Seth's right to have whatever friendships he wants. Others feel that Moxley visiting is inappropriate given the WWE-AEW rivalry. Management is reportedly concerned but trying not to overreact and make the situation worse. In AEW, the reaction is apparently positive. Talent there sees this as evidence that the wrestling business is about people, not just corporations. They view Moxley's visit as classy and appropriate, regardless of what it means for business. Final predictions. Question: 6 months from now, where is Seth Rollins working? WWE, AEW, or somewhere else entirely? Give me your honest prediction. Here's my ultimate take on this explosive situation. Jon Moxley visiting Seth Rollins is complicated, messy, and absolutely fascinating. Is it appropriate? Depends on your perspective. Does Roman have a right to be angry? Depends on whether you value corporate loyalty or personal friendship more. Will this lead to major changes in wrestling? Time will tell. What's undeniable is that the Shield story isn't finished. Whether they reunite, whether they remain separated by promotional lines, whether Roman and Seth's relationship recovers, all of that remains to be seen. But this visit has reopened conversations about loyalty, friendship, and what it means to be brothers in professional wrestling. Roman feeling disrespected is valid from his perspective. Moxley being there for his friend is valid from his perspective. Seth being caught in the middle is the most difficult position. There are no easy answers here, only complex human emotions playing out in a very public way. Let me know everything you're thinking in the comments. Is Roman justified in his anger? Was Moxley wrong to visit without telling Roman? Where do you think Seth's head is at right now? Could this lead to a Shield reunion? And if you made it this far, drop Shield forever if you want them back together, or move on if you think they should stay separated. Subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter for honest analysis of the biggest wrestling stories. Like this video if you're as captivated by this drama as I am. And share it because everyone needs to discuss what this means for wrestling's future. Until next time, value real friendships over corporate loyalty, and I'll see you in the next one.